Stop lying about me! Maybe if your father wasn't a fraud. Don't dare! At least I know who my father is.
That moment changed everything between them. But the truth is, their story didn't start there. It started long before they ever stepped into that college. In two different parts of the city, under two very different roofs, two girls grew up believing the same thing. That somewhere out there existed a man who had ruined their father's life. And by extension, ruined theirs. Vanessa Cole had always known her father as a powerful, controlled man. Daniel Cole didn't raise his voice often, but when he did, it meant something. To Vanessa, he wasn't just her father. He was a man who had been wronged. "You'll meet people in life," he told her once, his voice steady, "who will smile with you and destroy you when you're not looking." Vanessa had looked at him carefully. "Did that happen to you?" A pause. Then a quiet nod. "He took everything I built," Daniel said, "and made the world believe it was his." Vanessa didn't ask for more. She didn't need to. From that day on, one belief settled firmly in her mind. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness. Hi family, I need you to please help subscribe and watch my video to the end. Please remember to subscribe to my channel. Let us continue. Across the city, Chloe Whitmore grew up hearing a different version of that same pain. Her father, Richard Whitmore, wasn't as controlled. His anger didn't hide, it lingered in his tone, his silence, even the way he held his glass after a long day. "Never trust a man who pretends to be clean," he said one evening. Chloe leaned against the wall, arms folded. "That sounds personal." "It is." She raised a brow. "Who is he?" Richard didn't hesitate. "Daniel Cole." The name didn't mean anything to her yet. But the way he said it, that stayed. "He didn't just betray me," Richard continued. "He made sure I paid for it." Chloe studied her father's face for a moment. And quietly, she chose a side, without ever hearing the other. Years passed. The anger both men carried never disappeared. It only became quieter, more controlled. And somehow, without realizing it, both girls inherited it. Not through experience, but through belief. When Vanessa got into Westbridge University, it wasn't a surprise. Her father simply nodded, "Good." But just as she was about to leave his office, he added, "You'll hear a name there." Vanessa paused. "Whitmore." Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. Stay away from anything connected to that family. Chloe got her acceptance days later. Her father's reaction was different, pride, mixed with something unreadable. "Westbridge," he repeated slowly. Then he looked at her. "If you come across anyone with the last name Cole." Chloe sighed lightly. "I know, stay away." But he didn't nod. "Not just stay away," he said. "Be careful." They arrived at the same campus weeks later. Same halls. Same classrooms. Same space neither of them knew they were about to share. Vanessa had already heard whispers within days. "Whitmore's daughter is here. She's just like her father." Vanessa didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Chloe heard it too. "Cole's daughter. Yeah, I heard she's not someone you want to cross." Chloe smirked slightly. "Good," she muttered. It happened on a quiet afternoon. The lecture hall buzzed softly with conversations as students settled in. Vanessa walked in first, calm, confident, composed. A few seconds later, Chloe entered from the opposite side. Different presence. Same weight. Their eyes met across the room. And in that single moment, something unspoken passed between them. Vanessa's gaze sharpened slightly. Chloe tilted her head, studying her. No smiles. No greetings. Just a silence that felt intentional. Like recognition without introduction. Like tension without explanation. Neither of them said a word. But somehow, it already felt like the beginning of something that wouldn't end quietly. The first week at Westbridge University set the tone for what would become a tense, unspoken war. Vanessa noticed Chloe everywhere she went, as if the girl had silently claimed the same spaces she valued. In the library, Chloe would always choose the table next to Vanessa's. In the cafeteria, she'd laugh just a little too loud whenever Vanessa walked by. At first, Vanessa told herself it was coincidence, but coincidences didn't happen this often. Chloe, on the other hand, seemed to sense Vanessa's presence before anyone else. A quick glance, a subtle smirk, a tilt of the head, she made sure Vanessa noticed her. It wasn't just observation, it was calculated. By the second week, whispers started circulating. Cole's daughter and Whitmore's daughter are in the same history seminar. Did you see them in the courtyard? They don't even talk, but you can feel it. Vanessa overheard a group of students comparing schedules. She smirked faintly, though it was impossible to ignore the tension rising in her chest. Chloe had the same effect. It wasn't long before the first clash happened, small but deliberate. Vanessa had spent hours preparing a presentation for her sociology class. She arranged her notes meticulously, practiced her delivery, and even rehearsed her timing in the mirror. Then Chloe arrived. Not early, not late, just at the perfect moment. She casually dropped her own folder onto the same table, brushing Vanessa's notes with her sleeve. "Oops," Chloe said, a soft laugh escaping her lips. "Didn't mean to mess with your little setup." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Be careful with my things," she replied, calm, but every word sharp. Chloe tilted her head, smiling. "I'm sure it's fine, you'll manage." It wasn't fine. Vanessa had to reorganize everything in front of half the class. A subtle humiliation. And it worked. Chloe's smirk stayed for the rest of the lecture. From that moment, every encounter became a test. Classroom discussions, group projects, even casual campus walks turned into silent competitions. Each tried to outshine the other, to prove that they were not just daughters of powerful men, but powerful themselves. Some days the tension played out in words, others in actions that went unnoticed by most but burned deep in the other's mind. A spilled drink here, a swapped chair there, whispered comments in passing that only the target could catch. One afternoon, Chloe approached a group of Vanessa's friends in the courtyard. Her voice was casual, almost friendly. "Hey, I heard Vanessa's team is presenting next week. Are they ready?" One of the friends hesitated. Yeah, I guess. Why?" Chloe smiled sweetly. "No reason, just curious how they handle pressure." Vanessa, who had been walking behind them, stopped mid-step, her eyes locked on Chloe. It was a look that said everything without words. "I see you. I know what you're doing." Chloe caught the gaze and didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, amused. It was like a silent battle, one neither girl had fully named yet. But everyone else could feel it. Students whispered. Teachers noticed the energy in the room when both were present. Westbridge University had never felt so alive or so charged with unspoken rivalry. By the end of the first month, it was clear. The tension was no longer just social. It had grown into personal territory. Every joke Chloe made in a seminar, every compliment Vanessa received from a professor, every casual interaction became a mark in an invisible scoreboard that both girls were keeping. And at home, the influence of their fathers lingered in subtle ways. Vanessa would hear Daniel's voice in her head, "Stay sharp, trust no Whitmore." Chloe would remember Richard's words, "Never underestimate a Cole, never forgive." Every action was filtered through those lessons, shaping their moves, sharpening their words, and fueling the fire that was slowly becoming impossible to ignore. The campus had become a chessboard, and they were the queens, both powerful, both dangerous, both unwilling to yield. It wasn't just rivalry anymore, it was war. And neither of them had even realized how deep it had already taken root. The rivalry between Vanessa and Chloe had moved beyond casual clashes and whispered jabs. It had grown sharp enough to cut, deep enough to leave marks that neither could ignore. Every classroom became a stage, every hallway a battlefield. It was during a major history seminar that the first true escalation occurred. Vanessa had been assigned to lead a group presentation on modern social movements. She had meticulously coordinated with her teammates, rehearsing transitions and timing to perfection. She was proud, confident. She didn't notice Chloe observing from the back, her expression unreadable but deliberate. Halfway through the presentation, just as Vanessa was transitioning into the most critical section, Chloe raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I think there's a factual error in that last statement. I read an article that contradicts your point." Vanessa froze. The class murmured. Her teammates looked uneasy. Vanessa's eyes snapped to Chloe. "Are you sure you're not just trying to interrupt for attention?" she asked, voice steady but icy. Chloe smiled faintly, tilting her head. "If I wanted attention, I wouldn't need to do it subtly. I just think the facts should be accurate." The rest of the seminar passed in a blur for Vanessa. Every sentence Chloe spoke felt like a dagger, calculated to undermine her. By the time they left the room, Vanessa's cheeks were burning, not just from embarrassment, but from the growing awareness that Chloe had crossed a line. It wasn't just about schoolwork anymore. In the following weeks, the personal nature of their rivalry became impossible to ignore. Chloe had discovered that Vanessa had been spending a lot of time with a particular professor, gaining his mentorship for a prestigious internship. A few carefully placed comments, a rumor whispered into the right ears, and suddenly Vanessa's standing in the eyes of the other students was being questioned. Vanessa, in turn, retaliated subtly. She ensured that Chloe's project materials were slightly misplaced before presentations, or she would arrive just moments earlier to claim a table Chloe had carefully reserved. Each move was measured, each slight intentional. Then came the incident that changed everything, the day it all became personal. It was during a campus charity gala, an event Vanessa had spent weeks helping organize. The night was meant to showcase the school's achievements, the students' talents, and the community's generosity. Vanessa had put her heart into it, ensuring everything went perfectly. Chloe arrived late, as always, catching Vanessa's attention immediately. Instead of ignoring the event, Chloe had made it her mission to disrupt Vanessa's spotlight. First, she offered unsolicited suggestions during Vanessa's introduction, undermining her authority. Then, when Vanessa gave a speech about leadership and legacy, Chloe deliberately interrupted, asking pointed questions that drew attention to minor mistakes Vanessa had overlooked. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, and Vanessa's confidence faltered for the first time that evening. She could feel her face heating, frustration building, a storm ready to break. But she held herself together, finishing her speech with composed determination, masking the anger churning beneath. Afterward, in a quiet hallway near the exit, the inevitable confrontation happened. "You've been going out of your way to ruin me," Vanessa said, voice low but trembling with fury. Chloe leaned against the wall, arms crossed, expression cool. "Maybe I just don't like lies." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Lies? What lies?" Chloe stepped closer, voice dropping so low it was almost a whisper. "Everything you think you know about me, about your father, about this place, is built on lies." The words hit harder than any public humiliation, slicing deeper than the carefully plotted sabotage. Vanessa stumbled back, her chest tightening, heart racing. "What are you talking about?" Chloe's lips curved into the faintest, unreadable smile. Then, she said it, the line that would forever change the course of their rivalry. "At least I know who my father is." The silence that followed was absolute. The energy in the hallway shifted. Vanessa's expression froze, her face a mixture of shock, confusion, and something raw and unfamiliar, hurt. Chloe's eyes lingered on her for a moment, uncertain now, slightly unsettled. She had expected anger, confrontation, but not the vulnerability she was seeing. No one moved. No one spoke. The world around them faded for those few seconds. The tension that had been brewing for weeks, months even, hung suspended in the air. It was the first time Vanessa realized that their conflict wasn't merely rivalry, nor was it about social standing or pride. Something deeper had been at play all along, something tied to family. And Chloe, for the first time, felt the weight of the truth she had just revealed. She hadn't intended to shock Vanessa this profoundly, but the words she had spoken, they couldn't be taken back. That moment, that single line, changed everything. After that hallway confrontation, neither Vanessa nor Chloe spoke the words again, yet the echo of them lingered in every thought, every glance, every interaction. Vanessa couldn't focus in class. Every time her pen touched paper, her mind replayed Chloe's sentence, "At least I know who my father is." It wasn't just the words, it was the confidence behind them, the certainty, the implication that there was something she didn't know, something she had never been told. Chloe, too, felt a strange shift. She had expected Vanessa to explode, to lash out, but the girl had frozen. Vulnerable, shaken. It didn't feel like victory. It felt complicated, uneasy. And for the first time, Chloe questioned her own assumptions. A week later, the first real clue appeared. Vanessa was working in the library, scanning through the university archives for a research project, when she stumbled across an old alumni record from a decade ago. A name caught her attention, one she had never seen before, Whitmore Cole Foundation. Her fingers paused over the paper. Why did this exist? And why did it involve both families? At the same time, Chloe was cleaning out her father's office at home, a task she had done countless times. But that day, something unusual fell from a drawer, an envelope marked with a faded seal. Inside, she found letters, documents, and photographs linking her father and Daniel Cole in a way she had never imagined. There were mentions of a business deal gone wrong, a hidden partnership, and most importantly, references to children neither of them had known the other had. The pieces were falling into place, but the full picture remained hazy. Vanessa confronted one of her professors, trying to understand the Whitmore Cole Foundation records. "Professor Hayes," she asked, hesitant, "do you know why the foundation lists both families?" He leaned back, expression thoughtful. "It's complicated, but I can tell you this. There was once a very close partnership between Daniel Cole and Richard Whitmore. Something happened years ago that ended it badly. The foundation's name just remained." Vanessa's heart beat faster. "Do you mean they had a falling out?" "Yes, and from what I've heard, it wasn't just business," Professor Hayes said carefully. "There are stories about family, secrets, things that were never spoken of publicly." Chloe, meanwhile, pieced together her father's documents. One letter stood out. It was from Daniel Cole himself, dated years before either girl was born. It referenced a child he had with someone connected to the Whitmore family. Chloe's fingers trembled as she read the words, the implications sinking in. She didn't want to believe it at first. Half-siblings? That couldn't be possible. But every document, every photograph, every line confirmed it. The tension between the two girls shifted after the discoveries. Every encounter carried a new weight. Words that were once sharp with rivalry now felt fragile, uncertain. Their fights, their competitions, it was no longer just school politics. It was personal, yes, but in a way that neither had fully grasped. They started noticing details that had gone unnoticed before. A shared birth date, a resemblance in expressions, a habit or gesture. Vanessa, analyzing old yearbook photos, noticed how similar Chloe's smile was to her own in childhood pictures. Chloe, going through family albums, realized the same about Vanessa. Finally, a meeting was arranged, initially to discuss college matters, but inevitably the conversation turned. In a quiet corner of the campus garden, away from prying eyes, they sat facing each other. Vanessa broke the silence first. "Chloe, there's something I've discovered, something about our families." Chloe's expression hardened, defensive. "I know, I found things too." Neither spoke for a moment. The air was heavy with realization, confusion, and an emotion neither of them had expected. Fear. Vanessa whispered, almost to herself, "Could it be possible that—" Chloe's voice trembled slightly. "That we're connected." It was a dangerous thought, one they both tried to push away. But deep down, the clues, the documents, the coincidences, they all pointed to one undeniable truth. Their fathers' hatred had been built on lies, and their lives were entangled in ways neither girl had imagined. And just like that, the first cracks of the truth began to show. No explosions, no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just the silent, heavy weight of realization. The rivalry had not disappeared, but its foundation had shifted. What had once been purely anger, pride, and competition was now complicated by the possibility of something far more personal, a shared bloodline neither of them knew existed. The stage was set for the final revelation, and for a choice that neither girl could escape. The stage was set for the final revelation, and for a choice that neither girl could escape. Vanessa and Chloe sat in the quiet corner of the campus garden, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. Their earlier discoveries, clues, letters, photographs, and whispered confirmations had all led to one undeniable conclusion. Their fathers' rivalry had not only shaped their lives, but had hidden a truth they could no longer ignore. Vanessa's voice trembled slightly as she spoke first. "Chloe, everything I've found points to the same thing. The letters, the documents, our fathers weren't just enemies. There's something else." Chloe swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edge of the bench. "I found the same. The pictures, the dates, it doesn't make sense any other way." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You mean we?" Chloe nodded slowly, the word hanging in the air between them. Half-sisters. For a moment, neither spoke. The revelation was heavy, shocking, and yet, strangely, a relief. Years of rivalry, competition, and unspoken anger suddenly had context. They weren't enemies by choice. They were victims of a story written long before they were born. Vanessa's lips quivered. All this time, we were fighting each other without knowing why. Chloe's voice softened. And all the lies, our fathers, they made sure we would never know the truth. Tears threatened to fall, but they held them back. Instead, the girls simply looked at each other, taking in the reality. There was anger, yes, but also a strange, fragile understanding. For the first time, they saw each other not as competitors, not as enemies, but as people who had been hurt in ways neither deserved. Vanessa finally exhaled. "So, what do we do now?" Chloe tilted her head, a faint smile breaking through. "We decide what we do, not our fathers, not the past." The words felt powerful, liberating. They realized that their future didn't have to be defined by old grudges. They could choose differently. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa and Chloe slowly navigated their new reality. It wasn't instant forgiveness. Some wounds were too deep for that. But they began to rebuild their relationship on honesty rather than hatred. They shared stories of childhood, of the things they had believed about each other, of the lessons they had inherited from fathers who had lied to protect themselves, not their children. The campus, once a battlefield, became a place where they could cautiously coexist. Group projects were still competitive, but now there was a sense of mutual respect underneath the surface tension. Conversations that used to carry the weight of rivalry now carried curiosity, and sometimes even laughter. One afternoon, Vanessa turned to Chloe as they walked across the quad. "You know, I never thought we'd get here. After all the fights, all the chaos." Chloe nodded. "I didn't either, but maybe this is better than fighting. Maybe it's what we should have done all along." Vanessa smiled faintly. "Yeah, together maybe we're stronger." Chloe's eyes met hers, steady, sincere. "Not just stronger, smarter. We know the truth now, and we get to choose how to move forward." It wasn't a perfect ending. They both knew that their fathers' feud might never truly end, and the shadows of the past would linger. But it was their choice to rise above it, to not let anger and lies define them. And in that moment, walking side by side, they realized something profound. They had been raised as enemies. But the truth had given them a choice. A choice to forgive, to understand, to rebuild. Not for their fathers, not for anyone else, but for themselves. And for the first time in their lives, Vanessa and Chloe felt a sense of freedom that neither had imagined possible. They had been raised as enemies, but the truth had given them a choice.